Well, welcome back. I'm George, again here to serve you and our community. So this is the final, this will be part 2 of that Chinese still review. And yep, my parts came in today. I can't wait to show you all of that just as planned. Now remember, yesterday we built that water chiller, and I've got that outside right now running, so I'll have some chilled water. We're out here in the shop where it's nice and comfortable. I've got all the amenities of home, and I have hopefully your attention. So let's move on, and let me tell you what I've learned. Now this is one thing that's great about this community. Let me take this out. Is that the overwhelming response is so appreciated. I learned so much. I went through the Chinese still on part 1 and just kind of gave it a once over, you know, with pieces and parts. But the community has reached out and has schooled me on a bunch of different aspects of this thing that I'm about to share with you. Number 1 is, remember I said, I saw these, whoops, didn't know where they were going to go, but maybe they go in the bag. You know, remember I said that. Well, I didn't look. There's a screen in the bottom of this thing. Yeah, you can see it in there. There's a small, it's a cheap screen, but it's in there. And so you just dump these inside what I call the football or the vapor chamber, and that's what they're there for. So that's where they're going to go. Now, another thing I came up with, and I was curious about this valve at the top, and then, of course, the valve at the side here. Now, there's kind of a twofold purpose, potentially. Okay, number 1 is either one of these could be used to relieve pressure if you've got it all put together and you use the drain valve and you open up the drain to drain it. So without opening and disassembling the pot itself, you just open up one of these and vent to the atmosphere so it doesn't cause a vacuum. And you know what a vacuum would do in that? Probably not enough to crush it, but it would stop it from flowing. So that's what that's for. Or this one down here can be used for the same purpose, okay? Now, here's another purpose. And I found this really, really intriguing by some really, really astute viewers. One person wrote in and said, well, you know, this kind of on heat up kind of acts itself because it's thin, sort of like a condenser until it gets really, really warmed up. And so they said that they can drain off their methanol from this bottom pit. Not sure, I don't know, but it seems to reason it's quite possible. Another one was, and this one I found really, really interesting, is, you know, we talked about the design of this and where the vapor comes out, and you've got all this head space, and I was worried about that methanol just kind of collecting there and not really escaping. Should have thought of it myself, but I didn't. That's why I've got you out there. He said, one guy said he runs it up to about 160 or so, 148, 160, somewhere in that neighborhood, and opens his valve, and all that methanol just escapes. And he's right. And then after a predetermined amount of time, he closes that valve, and then everything else goes across. Makes perfect sense. So, now we know what those are for. And additionally, what else did I have? Yes. Now it came with the with a Celsius thermometer that just screws right in the side here. And of course, I'm going to run this. I'm going to use a PID with a 3,500 watt element on 240 volts, only because I have that readily available, and I want a heat up time that's a little bit shorter, and also I want it to be as efficient as I possibly can to see exactly how well this thing will operate. So that's why I'm going to use that. So what I want to do is I want to put my probe inside this vapor chamber. So I'll remove this, and someone else already wrote in and asked how to do this, and I'll show you how I did it. Pick this up now. And remember, there are hundreds of ways. So please, share your ideas. That's wonderful, but this is just the way I figured out how to do it in about 5 minutes. I went over to my collection of stuff, and you know those valves, those quick release air valves that you have on the, your air hose for your tire, or your air tools. Well, lo and behold, the probe, the size of that probe, if you're using a long probe, fits perfectly through that hole. So what I did was I cut the end of it off. You'll see here. I just cut the barb off. Let me show you. I'll get close. What I did was I cut it off right behind this. Let me show you right there. So you see this ring right here, and that's where it would normally capture in those in that fitting. Well, right behind that, in this direction, right where it bevels, I cut it right there. I just took a Dremel and I just cut it around there so it looks like. I'll just unplug it. It looks like this. So you see, and I'm sure you could buy one, but I just happen to have one laying around. I didn't want to go to the store, so I've got I'm just going to use the small one. Now these K-type thermocouples, they work just as good as the one with the long tube or with the long probe on it or the super long probe. Again, we just want this inside that. I can't get it into the vapor trail, which would be further up. See, the vapor trail's up here, and this goes in here. So the vapor trail is right below the vapor trail, as a matter of fact. So we'll see what the temperature readout is going to be. But I can always make an adjustment as long as I find my data point. So now that screws directly in there. There you go. So that's my solution for this still. Okay, let's go to the next one here. Now, remember I told you I was waiting on the parts that I needed. Yep. Now I could have run this, and you can run it as well immediately when you get it. You can run it on the stove. You run on, if you got one of them big super hot plates. And trust me, there are no economical hot plates that I can find that is large enough to handle a still this size, a 7.8 gallon still, or a 5 gallon still. Excuse me. It takes forever if you're using hot plates to heat that thing up with, and if you buy one that's big enough to handle that, you're going to pay an arm and a leg. So my concern about using a stove or using propane if you don't have a diffuser plate, is the scorching on the inside, because the metal is so thin. A diffuser plate is a piece of metal about the same size around as this, about 1/8 of an inch thick, and it's just a piece of metal you put down, and you place the kettle on top of that. It's called a diffuser plate because that gets super hot and it heats the kettle without the direct flame hitting it. You follow me? Because if you got direct flame hitting it, it's going to start to bubble right there where those flames hit it. If you're using especially propane, and that's when it could potentially start to really scorch bad. So people use diffuser plates. You can use an aluminum. You can use regular steel. Anything you have handy. It doesn't have to be round. It could be square. But in any event, it's called a diffuser plate for a reason. It diffuses the heat. Okay. Now, this valve, remember I showed you this valve, and it's got a 1.5 inch flange. And when they sell these, they're called 1 to 1.5 inch. And this one, they put this valve on here, and then they welded on the inside to make sure you couldn't get it off. And that's okay with me. Wish they wouldn't have done that, but they did. Okay. So what I needed is I have two options here. Let me find it for you here. There it is. Since my heater element, and this is the fold back 3,500 watt heater element. You can get 2,000 watt, you can get 4,500, 5,500. I like the 3,500 because it's efficient. It's easy for me to control. My PID works well with it. Gosh, especially in something this size, the heat up time is not that long. Okay, somebody's going to ask. It's about 30 minutes. Okay? All right. Now, this is a 1 inch NPT, National Pipe Thread. And inside these are, yep, inside this one is 1 inch. And I already had this one, but this is a 2-inch flange. And it fits on there, but there's no way I can clamp it. So I had to do something. So I had 2 options. I could get this one, which I did. I bought this one, which is the 1.5 inch to 1 inch NPT female side. So that goes on there and screws right on those threads. And then that will mate up against that pot and go right in there. Now my other option, and I bought this one as well, so I splurged and I got 2 because if this one for some reason was lost or didn't come in, and this one I still had the option to use this one. This is the 1.5 to 2 inch, and I would have put the 1.5 inch side to here, then I would have clamped the 2 inch to here, and then I would have inserted. So it was a longer way to get there, but the end would have been the same. So I had 2 options on how to do that. And this one was like 16 bucks, I think, and this one was somewhere around $14. So, and they're made out of stainless steel. Okay. One other thing is someone asked about using the magnet. I did use a magnet to check it. Magnet doesn't stick, so it is not tin. It is not a metallic material. We're happy with that. Alrighty. We are about to, I'm going to get this set up. And you might have wondered why this has been sitting here the whole time. This is another perfect prime opportunity to demonstrate for you what we've been saying for years. A mash does not go bad. Remember that? See, I've heard people say, it's finished fermenting, I got to get it done or it turns to vinegar in 3 days. Well, I'm here to tell you, this one is over 2 years old. Yep, that's right. Had it in the back corner of the man cave. It's been back there for over 2 years. 2 years and about 3 weeks or so, give or take. Forgot about it, and it's been sitting there, and it has not gone bad. It is still the same as it was when I set it back there. I did find it one time, and I went, oh my gosh, I have to do something with that. All I need to do is refill the airlock with some more water because the airlock was dry. So now I've got this clear. There's a small sediment on the bottom because this was already cleared up. But so you'll see that there's nothing wrong with it. I smelled it, tasted it. It's a mash just like it was the day I made it. Just can't remember what I made it out of. Just can't remember. But we're going to run it today. I know it's probably around a 13% ABV because that's normally what we run. So give me a few seconds here. I'm going to get this thing all assembled and fired up and get my water hoses running in here, and we will be back. Oh, I won't make the same mistake twice. I'll put this sucker on laying down. Yeah, much easier. And remember, just finger tight so that it compresses that gasket. Okay. Get that seat. Okay, she's all assembled. Okay, there we go. Put it around like this. Okay. Now, we're all assembled. I've got my PID hooked up. I'm getting ready to plug in the element, and we'll let this thing start to heat up. I have no leaks so far. Yeah, I can hear it. It's already started to warm up that element. Yep. All right, we'll see how long that takes. Now, I'm all set up. I had a leak here at first, but that has since resolved itself. So I'm good with that. So I got cold water in, and of course the cold water going out. I've hooked up a Parrot, and I'm gonna drop my alcoholometer, proof and trail hydrometer in there. Now, and you know that my little trick to that is you take a little bit of copper mesh and roll it up and throw it at the bottom. That way when you drop this in there, it doesn't hit the bottom and shatter. So, of course I try to put it in there carefully, but That way you can't hear it hitting the bottom because it doesn't. It's bouncing off of that. Okay, got that. Now the only two adaptations that I've made to this thing are the connector, the adapter I bought here for my heater element. That's one adaptation, and the other one is I'm going to use the PID, and I'm at 104 degrees. It's been still about 10 minutes. And I've added my parrot to it. Otherwise, we're going to use this still exactly the way we got it. Yeah, with the exception of how I'm heating it. So we're going to see what the results are, and we'll give you the final, because, I mean, so far right now it's heating up, and I'm, yeah, rather happy with it. Oh, this is amazing. And what we're going to try to do, now I've already tried this, opening this valve, and I'm not collecting anything out of there at 150 degrees. So, and you know that methanol burns off at 145. So, this idea escapes me, but what we can do, we know that we're at 150 right now, so if I open this valve, anything that comes off of here, which should be, yeah, I can feel a little bit, that's my methanol. So we're going to allow that to vent out for a while, and hopefully when we go through and we do our test, because we're going to do the flame test, and someone also mentioned to me, they said, hey, why don't you turn the lights off and do that? We'll do that so that you can see it clearer. And if we don't get any methanol with a yellow flame, I've got some 4 shots laying around that I'll demonstrate for you. But for those of you who are sleeping, you're going to miss it. Sorry. We'll be back shortly. Hey, I even found a new way to test that, to find out if it's working. Capture some of it in your hands. Oh yes, yeah, I can tell that's the methanol. It's got a distinct odor to it, real not pungent, but more like a nail polish. So I know that that's working. And for the person who sent that tip in, man, thanks. That was awesome. Well, here's where we're at. It's been 45 minutes, and now I've got to run. I'm at 140 proof, coming from this still right now. So I'm pretty pleased with that. You can see how it's running. It's running pretty fast. I'm going to have to turn the heat down a little bit. But, and for those of you who did, you would have caught it. Yes, I did remove the parrot and collect what I would have considered the 4 shots. So we're going to turn the lights out here in a minute and light that and see what that shows up. You know, see if the methanol bleed off that we did originally worked out. Now, here's some of the good news. Number 1, the water chiller, no more ice. That thing's working perfect. I couldn't be happier with that. And thanks for all of your advice and all of your tutelage along the way to make that thing. Now, as it stands right now, I would tell you that I have to say that this still is actually working as advertised. It's producing. I know that I've got a little bit of adjustment to make to it, and I'll make those adjustments. But I turned the lights out, and I went around. I did, tried to check to see if I had any leaks. I looked. I used ultraviolet light. Also used a flame just to see there. I don't have any leaks in this. It's heating up perfectly. It's operating well. My PID is maintaining my temperature. I'm pleasantly pleased with this, and I'm pleasantly pleased with its production level. So we're getting ready to turn the lights out. We're going to do the flame test. And these are the 4 shots that I pulled out. So bear with me just a second. I'll grab this. I'll turn the lights out, get this, and then we'll light it. And then we're going to also test our spirits that we have coming out. These are the 4 shots that we pulled off of this still when it first began to start running. So we'll light that. And you can see that now that's burning a very pretty blue. You'll notice that. Now, and every once in a while you'll see a little bit of yellow up here at the very tip. Don't worry about that. That's just the flame interfering with the atmosphere and all those other things. But look at this flame. My assessment to that is that we did successfully vent off all of the methanol because it's burning nice and blue. Now, let's do clean this off. And let's grab a little bit of the run. And now we're going to light this, and I'll show you what this looks like. Now look how nice and pretty blue that is. It's either blue or transparent. Okay, so now we've made, this is a successful test. Now it's important to have something to compare that to. So I have some 4-shots that are loaded with methanol that I'm going to light this time. And I want you to watch this because you see, this way you'll be able to see the definite difference between a methanol-laden collection sample and one that has no methanol in it. Here you go. Now look at how yellow that flame is. Now that's the difference. You should be able to tell that almost immediately. You notice how almost the entire body of that flame was yellow. Well, there you have it, my friends. This Chinese still, I've actually grown to like it. It does exactly what it's advertised to do. Now, of course, this is a buyer beware scenario. If yours arrives, well, mine was only dented. But if yours arrives and you have leaks and the welds are really, they're imperfect and they start leaking and everything, I can't answer for that. I can tell you that this particular one, this is the 30-liter model, 7.8 gallons. It does exactly what it says it's going to do, and I'm on my second quart, and I'm still producing 130 proof right now. So, all in all, is it worth the $159 that I spent on it? Well, yes. Yes. It's probably a good entry level still until you get to the point where you're really, really comfortable and you want to move up and start perfecting your art. So, oh, by the way, yeah, the guy back there that was sleeping, yeah, please don't send me an email or a comment and say, oh, well, you bled off the methanol and then it burned yellow. Well, if you were paying attention, the methanol bleed was successful, and I only had some extra 4-shots setting aside, and I used that as a demonstration. You got it? Okay. We're always happy to be here with you. And as always, happy distilling.